really excited to be here with you this morning. I hope my voice doesn't crack. When Joel first reached out to me, sorry, I'm having a moment. He said, Josh, earlier. Anyway, when Joel first reached out to me, I have to say I reread the email because I was like, are you sure? Like, it's me that you want? And he was like, yeah, kind of. And then I started looking at the breadth of my work and realized, okay, well, maybe I do have some things to share. When he mentioned silence, I thought a little bit more about the work that I did and the fact that I tend to gravitate towards things that are related to social good and that speak to those that are often marginalized or underrepresented, who don't have a voice or a seat at the table, who are maybe too young to speak up. And I thought this might be a great way under this theme to kind of highlight some of that. I only have 30 minutes. And I know some of you are thinking, Silence and Diane, how is this going to work? I thought the same thing too. So that's why I enlisted a friend of mine, Kojo, to kind of help me corral all of this so that I could try to be somewhat brief and touch on 3 areas in which I have a passion for and that I think needs to be amplified, advocated, that needs advocacy. Where one can volunteer or maybe donate and support. So with that said, again, I want to thank Joel and the Creative Mornings team for inviting me here, as well as all of you for getting up this early, because Lord knows, Leslie knows this, sitting to the left, this is too early for me. Actually, it's not. I'm going to talk about something else, and then you'll see that actually I do quite a bit. I decided to take over the Creative Mornings. All right. So I gave you kind of a brief introduction of like what I'm going to be talking about. Joel alluded to it as well. But I think that's important that I also kind of tell those of you that don't know me, maybe introduce myself to you. You've probably Googled, because I know all of you do, and you've probably gone through social media, and you've seen some things there, but some of it I have not gone into great depth. I'm not going to so much, but I'm going to touch on it. So I want to introduce you to my parents, Deb and Walt. I know, aren't they cute? People say we look alike. Rightfully so. So my mom and my dad are both social change advocates. My dad is in the military. You'll hear a little bit about him later. My mom actually was a buyer, was going to be a buyer until she met my dad and decided to be a military wife. They both met at the same school that I'm getting ready to show you, Florida A&M University. Yeah, shout out to them. My little brother, little big brother, believe it or not, is 5 years younger than me and roughly 5 inches taller than me. He's also known to hijack your light. So when visiting him in New Mexico 2 years ago, I was trying to get that selfie because that's what we do. And he just couldn't resist being part of that. For those of you who don't know, oh, whoops, let me go back. Uh-oh. Okay, for those of you that don't know Florida A&M, it's a historically Black university in Tallahassee, Florida. That's where I spent 4 years, as well as my parents. And for those of you that don't know Florida A&M, you might know Beyonce, and you might know Homecoming, her special that she graced us with last spring. My school is known for their band, is known for a number of things. One of the big things they're known for is the Marching 100, who made up a good portion of the band that backed her for that special. I work at AARP, it's a magazine. At least that's what I was hired for several years back. 10 years back. Yeah, time goes by fast. I was hired as an art director for AARP, the magazine, and since then my role has changed somewhat. I still work on the flagship publication, but I also now have gotten a little bit more into digital. So I am the art director for 2 newsletters that are geared towards women called The Girlfriend and Sisters. And then I have my hand in another newsletter called Disrupt Aging, and I partner with the design director on that. And so this is just a few samples of that work. And I'm gonna back up just because I know that some of you on this side might not be able to see me. So I also am affiliated with AIGA. So for anybody who, AIGA DC in particular, so if anybody's here from AIGA DC, please raise your hand or give them a clap or a cheer. I've been with them for probably just as long as I've been with AARP, believe it or not. I'm currently the Strategic Initiatives Director, which means I get to put my hands everywhere. And also, it also means I have a lot of institutional knowledge, so they always come to me, you know, for to go back down memory lane if they're trying to remember if we did an event or if we were connected to somebody and so on and so forth. I also work with Gap and Anthropologie as brand ambassadors and also as visual display. So even though I said I usually don't get up this time, I lied. I actually get up at roughly about 4 a.m. 4 a.m. a couple of times during the month to play in the windows of Gap Tyson. So if you're doing power walking in the Tyson, because that's what people do, no judgment at all. Come by, see me. I'm usually in the windows, either upstairs or downstairs. Okay, I have a passion project, as a lot of people do. I would call it a hustle, but it's no longer a hustle. It really is more of a passion project. Sometimes it can be a job, and the past 2 years it ended up being a job. This particular passion project started off because I decided that I wanted, and all the things that I've shown you, I wanted the opportunity to be my own boss, and all of those other affiliations, whether it be Gap, Anthropologie, even AARP, I was reporting to somebody else. With AIGA, it's the same thing. Even though I am a board member and was a board member, I still was providing service to somebody else. And with this project, I decided that I wanted to be literally my own boss. I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do, when to do it, and what materials to use. So I started this in 2015 using found objects to create a series of numbers. I got to 1,000. I'm not going to say it's over, it's on pause, but it was a way of me fueling my own creative expression through work through items that I saw, things that I saw out in the wild. That project, like I said, paused at 1,000. And when it did, brands started to reach out to ask for collaboration. I've spoken to Etsy in regards to it, Etsy headquarters in New York. But I also landed a gig with HP, the printer, where for those that don't know, I have to say that, but I worked with them for 2 years, talking about using their innovation, using printing, developing 2 prototype books that had to do with inks, using their inks, their specialty inks, and using some of their AI technology. I was really fortunate to work with them across the country here in the US, but then also to Israel, where I did a presentation there to their customers. The main reason why I'm here, though, is not to talk about all the great and wonderful things I've had a pleasure of working on through AARP and other places, but more to focus on these particular initiatives through the work that I do. And these 3 initiatives, women, veterans, and children, are 3 that I feel really strongly about. And so I'm going to introduce you to them. If you are inspired and want to help, great. If you feel like you are one of the people in some of this, then you've been seen. And so we can connect later after the fact, to talk a little bit more about it. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in any of these areas, but I can help guide you maybe to outlets that might help you or others or somebody that you know. So if you're ready, here we go. All right, women illustrators. I mentioned earlier that I work on 2 digital newsletters called The Girlfriend Sisters. They're both powered by women for women that are 40 plus and older. When I was kind of coming up, I started to get more and more into the arts. My parents were both, again, change agents. They both were really involved in the arts apart from the work that they did full time. They dabbled in all types of craft. So that took me to museums. They introduced me to museums. My schools introduced me to museums, so on and so forth. I decided that I would pay a little attention to the things that I was seeing. And the past, I would say, as of late, like the past 10 years, I started to notice the work of the Guerrilla Girls. And what they do, first of all, how many people know the Guerrilla Girls? Oh, awesome. This is great. I'll have to do a lot of explaining then. Okay. All right. So Real Girls are essentially a collective, anonymous women's collective that focuses on things that have to do with women, in particular, drawing out the biases that exist, the inequality, the corruption that has to relate to the arts, politics, and film, and a couple of other areas. They have, this collective is domestic and worldwide, and they show up in public spaces, but they also are part of progressive exhibitions at museums. Not all major museums, because again, they are calling to light the inequalities, and the injustices of the art world, but they're there and they're present, and you can get their, you can buy their product, or you can just take note of their pieces in museums. So after seeing some of their work, I was like, I'm a woman, I'm an artist, how can I make it? And I also have the ability to help direct the landscape. What can I do? How can I play a part in making a change for the better? When these two newsletters fell in my lap, I was kicking and screaming, I'm not gonna lie, Leslie knows this. I was struggling with this one because I knew it would be more work. But I took it as an opportunity to highlight women. And I thought, you know what, we work at ARP, the magazine, we work with a ton of amazing artists, but a good portion of them are men. And there's no slight to men, but there are equally as many talented women out there. And so I decided, you know what? Ooh, I went too fast, sorry. I got the clicker and I'm just clicking. I decided after, looking at Guerrilla Girls' work, reading looking into, female artists, trying to find female artists, coming across this quote by Wendy McNaughton, who is a co-founder with Julia Rothman of Women Who Draw. I thought, let me use this let me take some time, do some research, and see what I can do to move the needle. If I have the keys to the car and I'm hiring and I'm producing a weekly newsletter twice a week, right? Twice a week. You take twice a week time for a whole year. You're looking at over 200 illustrations. That I can move the needle. I can help change the landscape. I can help be a beacon, a voice for these women illustrators in particular. ARP has 38 million members. That's 38 million eyeballs. That's a lot of people clicking and blinking, right? Okay. The newsletters don't have as much, but they're getting there, right? So the more I can share, these and highlight these women artists, the more other people will take notice. And they might, even though it's not going to be so blatant, they'll take notice of how amazing the work is. And then maybe they'll reach out. That was my plan, right? And so we're going to walk through how that worked out. I use a lot of local artists like Jade Schultz. She's not here today. Through the work, I use a lot of artists that are real talk, you guys. Some of you can identify with it. I know I did. My friends asked me. But I use a lot of artists that aren't necessarily domestic, that are global, because again, there's talent. Talent is everywhere. And now that we're in this digital age, you can connect with people various ways, through Skype, through email, through Instagram, right? And so I made a point, I am fast. I made a point of, go slow, D, of looking for women. It's not always easy to find the style that you're looking for, so sometimes it requires a little bit more work. But when you find great people and they have the enthusiasm, right, and the aesthetic that you're looking for, you can really create some strong and amazing pieces. I think Tara is actually here. This is real. These stories are real stories that we publish. Housley is another DC-based artist. She's here as well. But my point is with this is that I want to help highlight them, and not just general market women, everybody, but also women of color. Because if you notice from that stat that Wendy had, you notice the disparity even within that bracket, within women. So I make sure to think of all of those things, whether it's domestic, whether it's global, whether it's women of color, whether it's older versus younger, DC versus, again, LA. I take a lot of things into consideration. Now, I want to highlight one person in particular to kind of show you how this went full circle. Shyama Golden is an artist that was based in New York, and I have to praise and thank Rob, who was a former Creative Mornings speaker, for introducing me to her cyberly. I reached out to her. We disagree with when she took the job. I said she blew me off. She said she didn't. Okay. Here we go. 9 illustrations later, let's say, she's done a job, and she's oh gosh, I am fast, y'all. Sorry. She's rendered at least 9 to 10 illustrations for me. Upon seeing her work, though, I thought it really resonated with me. I thought she was really strong. She had a great likeness. She was illustrating in a way that I had not seen before from a female artist in particular. So I thought when I hired her, I would make sure to give her women who were really strong. And I thought that she did really well with women of color. So I said, you know what, I'm just gonna, I didn't tell her this. I said, I'm just every now and then when I have a strong personality, a good personality, I'm gonna give it to her. And so I did. And because of the work that she did, because of her style, the celebrities also embraced it. And so throughout the 9 or 10 that I hired her for, most of them got reshared via the social media of that celebrity. So June Ambrose, and if they didn't get reshared, they liked it, which was even better. Rosario Dawson was another who shared hers publicly. But it even went as far as Michelle Obama didn't comment. I think she was flooded with stuff. Because the Washington Post, the Lily, shout out to the Lily, because I know there's somebody here, Rachel, for relicensing it, the same image, so that their audience could see it as well. So it went from, Rob introducing me to her accepting the assignment, to her doing these illustrations, spot illustrations, to then having pieces be relicensed, to Lupita and other celebrities liking it, as you can see there at the top, to going on to the Twitters and seeing that Shyama's work is in some movie, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out how did that happen, but I was super excited for her. So I tweeted back, and she said, oh, I got it from you because you hired me for Lupita, and the art director for this movie said, let me bring you on. And so she ended up rendering 3 portraits for a movie with Issa Rae that came out this spring. That's how it comes. That's how it goes, right? And I couldn't have asked for anything better. Wow, this is sensitive. But throughout that journey that she had, it's only been in the past year and a half, she landed her first agent. So if you're looking for her, she's a handsome Frank. Good luck trying to get her though. And she has moved to LA. But she now has an agent, which is awesome. So now she's not worried about trying to figure out her schedule, and what clients to take and what not. She doesn't have to be the bad guy. But she now has a body of work that she's really proud of, and can be a little bit more selective. And then to close this one out, again, if we go back to the Wendy McNaughton slide that said that 55% of the American Illustration Awards are usually white men, this is helping to change the needle, because this spring, Shyama received an American Illustration Award for this particular illustration. I'm super stoked too. I'm really excited about that one. We're going to move on to veterans now. I mentioned a little bit that my dad was in the military. He's a retired colonel. He was in the Army. He's also an Army Ranger, so he's part of that Special Forces, which means he's a little bit cray. My brother, no, for real. My brother is also in the military. He is an airman. He's active duty. My cousins have been in the military. None of them are right now. Across all branches. on my mom and my dad's side, but mainly on my dad's side. My great grandfather was in the military, so I have this history with the military. And having grown up military, I moved roughly every 2 years, so I never really had a home, so to speak. And I was okay with that, because when you're in that lifestyle, that's just what you do, right? But what I noticed with the military is that, or at least with my dad in particular, my dad was a boss. You know, he had soldiers that reported to him. He had a whole battalion that he reported to. My dad was gone a lot. He was gone a lot of the time during my early days, younger days. My dad was also not the nicest person, you know, because he was so macho and he was so into things. So what I witnessed as I got older and as we started to have a conversation, and I started to also look into what was really going on, I noticed that there were a lot of his peers, my brother's peers, suffer from PTSD. Now, my dad will never say that he has PTSD, right? He'll never say that. He's too strong for that. My brother will never say that either. He also is a victim of PTSD. But I know, and we know, and those that are around can tell when somebody is just a little bit off, so they say, or when they're struggling to deal with certain issues. And those issues could be really basic. When you go into, you know, when you start doing the research about vets, you'll notice that like a lot of vets suffer from PTSD and in various forms of it. There's something about the pride that they have and they don't want to share that they have. There's something going on mentally. It might be because of things that they've seen, the things that they've experienced, or it might be a combination of a lot of things, rapid change happening in their life. For instance, my brother was deployed back-to-back for 7-month deployments to the Middle East for 3 years, consecutively. And in one of those tours, he went to Syria. Actually, the day of 45's inauguration, I got a call saying that he had to pack up and leave for Syria within a couple of weeks. Right before that, he also got a divorce. So he comes back from one deployment and immediately, loses his entire family, and then is now being deployed to Syria, which, remember, during 45's inauguration, we weren't there, right? So upon coming back from that, 7 months later, our family witnessed a change in him, a change that was a little hard for me to take because, again, I had grown up with a dad who had these, had moments where his personality was up and down, but to watch my brother go through it was a little bit harder for me. And again, it wasn't just what he saw in Syria, but it also was like the fact that he lost his family, right? And all those things kind of coming together. And then on top of that, now he has to be strong. It was a lot. A lot of military people also don't want to get therapy. Why? Because it's a stigma. It makes you seem like you're weaker than the next person. Nobody wants to go to battle with somebody who's not strong, who's not mentally strong. So they hide, they fall into, I don't want to say a rut, but they do their best to try to mask how they're feeling. So that's Big Walt with his battalion. My little brother going back from Syria. I decided that my project, after witnessing all of this and doing a little bit of research, I decided that one of the things I worked on pro bono in the future would be something that had to do with mental health and also something that would relate to the military. I wanted to pay homage to that family, to my family, and to anybody who has witnessed those who have gone through either PTSD or who have a family member who serves, right? So my next project I'm going to talk about it wasn't pro bono. I wanted to do a pro bono, but I ended up donating the proceeds to the Purple Heart Foundation and Veterans on the Rise. The Purple Heart Foundation being an organization that supports combat troops and their families. And then the Veterans on the Rise is actually a DC-based organization that helps homeless vets, because that's the other thing. A lot of vets come back, and because, again, of their pride, not wanting to say they need help, they end up homeless. That's one of the reasons they end up homeless. It's not the only reason. So this project that I worked on was with Nike, and it was a shoe collection. I love fashion, I love shoes. I didn't realize I was a sneakerhead until this project. Okay, I knew already. Anyways, so he reached out and asked if I would, participate in a collaboration with them. And I was one of 5 women, which was pretty awesome, last year in 2018. And they said, you can do whatever you want. Initially they were like, well, design the shoes and then, you keep the proceeds, which is very small, believe it or not. We won't get into the numbers, but it's like the record. It's like the music business. Anyway, they said you could do that. And I said, you know what? I'm not gonna, because I know that I wanted my next thing to be involved. I wanted to pay homage to my family or to military members. I decided that I was gonna actually give my proceeds to those 2 organizations that I met. And so I designed my collection based around the military. The beautiful thing about this was that I was able to involve my family. The time limit for design was very, very small. I mean, when I say small, I'm talking about like less than a month. But I was able to reach out to my brother and my dad to help them design this. I had my brother again is 5 years younger, and he talks through Snapchat. I only say that because I have nothing against Snapchat. It's just that I can't get him on the phone. I can't text him, have him text me back. But I send him something through Snapchat, no problem. I get my answers. So I designed 3 shoes, sent him a couple of designs per shoe to him via Snapchat, where he voted on the one that he liked. Here we are. You learn to work with people where they are. This is how I worked with him on this. And it worked out. I designed the collection. I had a color as a designer. I don't know how many people are designers in here? Let me just get a pulse. Okay. I can't see you guys, but okay, it's a lot. So you know how the process works, right? You design a collection and then you make sure that it has there's a theme to it. So I had a theme military, but you also want to make sure like you're using certain colors and stuff like that. There's a narrative. And so in designing that, I wanted to make sure when I sent it to him that, like he was voting on ones that would be in my theme. So I can show you sketches and stuff of this later. So I sent it to him via Snapchat. My dad, I knew he wasn't a designer, creative type, but not in that way. I knew that he was a words guy. So I reached out to him and had him help me name the shoe and also come up with a brief description of what the shoe entailed. So in this case, this is the Air Force Ones, and we called it the Ground Force. And if you read the tag, it says endurance with integrity, and then there's a little bit more, there's an inspiration line there. And this is supposed to speak to the soldiers that are literally ground soldiers like him, that are infantry, that walk miles and miles and miles. I initially, when working with my dad, asked him, I said, maybe I'll make it like officer and enlisted, because William's enlisted, you're an officer, and he was like, don't do that. And I was like, why not? It sounds cool. I'm not in the military. I'm thinking it's cool. He was like, no, because you'll segregate the people who are going to purchase it. If you want people in the military to purchase it, somebody who's enlisted is not going to buy a shoe that's named after an officer, and vice versa. And I was like, that is great. This is why collaboration is important. This is why talking is important. So again, we went with the Ground Force, and then we went with, the Enforcer. Which was one that is geared towards those who are kind of like my dad, like a boss. You'll notice a female soldier pinning on another soldier. And that is the Air Max. And then we went with the Elite for the Special Forces, because again, my dad was a Ranger. And so I wanted something that was sleek and sexy for that particular type. My dad was also a paratrooper, so I wanted to make sure that I got that inspiration in as well. And so he not only helped with the words, he also helped me land on the images. And then again, my brother helped me with the design of the shoe. And really, that's all that really mattered to me, was that they were very happy with it. But I will have to say that the community, the DC community, played a huge role in the activation of these shoes as well. These are just a few of the pictures that, a few of the social media outtakes that I got from people who were very supportive of this particular project. It was great for me to be able to now talk about the military and again, give them a shout out, not just my military family, but other service members in this area. I did some PR with local stations here. Good morning today, good morning Washington, good day Washington. I even had, which I'm really excited, this was not planned, but I even had my colleagues at work, 6 of them bought shoes and then decided to stage a photo shoot. I know, it was pretty sweet. I was like, oh, you guys almost had me tearing up, but I don't cry that often. And then I also have my mentor, Gail Anderson, also from, she's not here, but she lives in New York. She also surprised me with the shoe. So what was great about this project was being able to advocate for the military and to show my love for my family and to those who are service members. Talk a little bit about mental health, one-on-one with people and some of the things that people have experienced. And then also, create a line that could be embraced by not just, again, the DC community, but those across the country and a few across the world. So again, going back, the people who mattered the most that I really wanted to make sure they were happy with it was my family. And so my cousin, Big Walt, you saw a younger version of him, then you saw him in action, and now you see him, he's a little fluffier, but it's cool. And then of course my brother who wears a size 17 shoe, so that was a real treat. Getting him to, yeah. And see, okay, so I'm gonna break for just a second. I was appalled that I tried to get my brother every shoe, right? And I got him the Air Force Ones and I got him the Air Max. I couldn't get him the Presto. Now, I don't know. Nike is a huge company, right? They do. I mean, my brother's a 17. I think Shaq is like a 23. It cost $1,000 for them to make a mold for the Prestos, right? So they wouldn't do it. Yeah. And I was like, this is a service member. Are you kidding me? So anyway, I just wanted to say that. It's Nike, right? They do everything. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk about children. So with children, they're the youngest, of this. They're the youngest of the demo that I decided to highlight. They're also the one that's the most vulnerable, right? Because they oftentimes don't have the voice, and they often don't have advocates. And especially when it relates to trauma and violence or sexual abuse, right? It's often it's hard to sometimes not just get them to talk, but also identify. Sometimes it takes a trained professional to help, get that information. Sometimes it takes them having a breakdown or acting out for somebody to even delve into what could possibly be happening. Uh-oh, sorry. In, I don't know what year it was, probably about 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Nicole Shea, who I know is here, introduced me to Safe Shores, which is an organization that supports kids who suffer from, they advocate for kids who suffer from violence and trauma. I went to a coffee chat and learned these stats and was kind of moved by them and thought, wow, maybe I should be doing something to help with this initiative. Having known people who have gone through it personally, I felt like it was important that I lend my talents in this way. I wasn't 100% sure what that would look like. As Safe Shores doesn't allow you to meet the families, they only allow you to come in and learn about their services, which are comprehensive services, right? They allow you to come in and wrap gifts, see the spaces where they have art therapy, see the places where they do the forensic interviews. Because at Safe Shores, when kids are extracted from, or in the DC community, when they are extracted from the home, they don't go to a police station and they don't go to a hospital. They come here. They come here because the Safe Shores has the ability to have everybody that they would normally talk to in all those different places under one roof. And so when the kids come in, they come in through a certain side of the building. They go into a little room where they have a psychologist talk them through. And on the other side of a window, of a mirror is, you know, all the people that need to hear and write down and take notes and then act. And so after seeing that, I was like, oh man, yeah, I gotta, like, I know I said the military is gonna be my next thing, but I think I gotta do this, right? So if an opportunity presents itself, I need to do it. So I went back for another round of like the coffee chat, and was an ambassador and brought other people, you know, in to hear a little bit more, and waited for the opportunity. And I shouldn't say waited, but I did, because my life is a little busy. And then the opportunity came. It came almost after the Seekers, like 2 months later, it came, this opportunity. A woman by the name of Jessie Arrington out of New York reached out and said, hey, you know, I have this program I'm doing where I'm asking designers to design an enamel pen. We're going to sell it with all the proceeds going to whatever their charity of choice. And I was like, oh, godsend, this is a godsend. How did this happen? Right? Because I have been looking for like pen resources. You guys know how it is. You go down the rabbit hole and you're like, shoot, I got to go to China and I got to do all that. So when she said that, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I got to design a pen. And I said, well, when do you need it? She's like, next month. And I was like, I don't know why people come to me in the last minute for stuff. I just don't get it. But it's cool though. I was like, I'm going to make this work. So I designed a pen. And actually it was a set of two. And the reason why it says resist is because she had come up with this idea of doing coming up with this pen program in resistance of, or in opposition, excuse me, of the current administration and all the things that were happening. And so she asked that everybody who designed a pen, you know, use the word resist or resistance. And so I was like, you know, that's cool. I can do that because in some ways, some forms, this is affecting, you know, students as well and the money that this organization is going to get. So I designed 2 pens, and then she helped shop it. The thing about it is they sold out in 15 days. So yeah, so it wasn't. So I could not, and we did not reproduce, you know, any more than that. But what I did do was I created some stickers and showed up at Safe Shores again to kind of share, you know, to kind of amplify not just this project, but again, the work that I was doing with them. Unfortunately enough, just like with the shoes, I had people here in the DC community who supported me in this effort. And Safe Shores, some were introduced to Safe Shores and continue to work with them even now. I had people in San Francisco who bought tons of pens, even Grace Bonney from Design Sponge, who some of you know. Her wife also purchased a pen. Jennifer Knox over here purchased a pen. Lots of people purchased a pen. And a lot of it was, again, to support not just me, but really this particular organization and the work they do. What was also nice is that there were a number of people who chimed in, may not have bought a pen, but identified with this particular work because they themselves worked in it. And so, again, for me, it was about illuminating some issues and illuminating those who often, again, are marginalized or young, and two, just don't have the means to talk or are afraid. I remain an ambassador with Safe Shores, and will continue to do some work with them. As a matter of fact, next year, 2020, is their 25th anniversary, and I'll be remained an ambassador with them, likely doing an event with them. So stay tuned for that. It likely is not going to be also at Safe Shores. It's probably going to be some offsite thing, but stay tuned for those things. There's another project that I'm going to mention. It's not mine, but it's kind of in line with this. This is a project that I wish that I could have participated in, and I might even try to remodel later. I can't say right now, but I want to introduce you to it because I thought that it was incredibly moving, and it touched me when I first saw it. And as somebody who goes to Art Basel, it definitely, on a regular basis, it definitely resonated with me. So let me share it with you.
Sometimes I draw scary things.
I entered thinking, oh, crayons and children, you know, magic and all the fun that we've all had with crayons in our life.
Here's a drawing by an 8-year-old boy. He drew one of his daddy's friends.
The one in the middle is the coach, and the animal is how she drew her mommy.
As you go through it and you listen to the audio, it becomes something very dark.
Nobody knew it at the time, but they were both abusing her.
Then they found out the man was making the boy do bad things.
That's when they realized the girl was floating. They say this means that she felt helpless and voiceless.
Another sign found way too late.
Every person in education or anything to do with youth should be aware of this.
Working Crayons is shining light on the dark subject for Miami Art Week.
Una de las exhibiciones que más está llamando la atención esta noche se llama Broken Crayons.
The art exhibit highlighting the troubling signs of child abuse and its effects through children's art.
So in conclusion, sorry to end on a slightly glum note, but if nothing else, I want you to remember that it's important that you not suffer, somebody that you know not suffer in silence. Ask people for help. Thank you.